Hi, I'm Jen Gallacher. Welcome to a Create Today Just Ask Jen video hosted by Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine. Today we're going to use the Cute Girl collection from Crate Paper to create an 8.5 by 11 inch layout. We're going to start with this piece of paper, which was originally 12 by 12. I'm going to use this delicate bow side. On the other side is this darling cat print. And I used it as an 8.5 by 11 inch layout because I wanted to use both the cat print as well as this pink bow print, and I only bought one piece of paper. So one way to stretch your supplies is to do a smaller layout size. Now I do both 12 by 12 as well as 8.5 by 11 inches, but this is one way to make your supplies stretch. When I cut it off from being a 12 by 12 layout, you can see, or rather a 12 by 12 inch paper, I had a little bit of the paper left over. We're going to add this to the left side of the layout. I've pre-cut all of the elements so we can quickly put the page together. Then I thought the page needed a little bit of black and white. There are a lot of black and white elements on this particular page. So I'm actually going to use this gingham strip from the Bloom collection designed by Maggie Holmes. I'm just going to cover the right and left side of that paper so that it runs not quite along the right edge. I came over just a little bit more. Now we're going to go ahead and build the page with some of the chipboard stickers and other elements from this collection. I'm also going to mix in some other embellishments from a few other companies, but predominantly we're going to use this Crate Paper collection. We'll start with a black doily. This is actually from Doodlebug Design. And I wanted to bring in some dramatic black to this paper. So I have a black doily. They come in a lot of different sizes, and this particular one happens to be black. They have lots of colors as well. Now from the chipboard stickers, in order to prepare my page, I went ahead and placed two chipboard pieces on top of each other to see what it would look like. But let's add the photos to them next. To the larger frame, I'm going to add a black and white photo of my niece. And I usually use the photo that I love best or best describes the story as the largest photo on my page. And this is going in the little black and white frame from the chipboard stickers. For the smaller frame, you want to make sure that the words, any words on the actual sticker, face the right direction. And then I place a secondary black and white photo also of my niece behind this frame. Now I'm going to get a feel for placement before I place them down because I want to add an additional embellishment. This is an older tag that I have had from American Crafts, but I wanted to use that black and white color. I'm going to take some white crochet twine, and to the top of the tag I'm just going to tie a little bow. Now you don't have to use the entire tag, and I'm not going to use the entire tag here. I want to maybe use that part of the tag that has the phrase on it a little bit later. So I'm going to trim that off. I'm not even going to worry about if it's straight or not. I'm just going to eyeball it. I can always fix this piece later with a paper trimmer. Then we're going to place this behind the larger frame before I add the frame to the page. So it just adds a little bit of texture to the top. Then I can just add some adhesive to the back of the photo, and I want to center that first photo where the tag is, and I want to make sure that it's aligned here as well. You could get out your ruler if you're worried. I tend to eyeball things. Now because I'm going to place this frame on top of this frame, there's a little bit of an edge here that's raised. So typical adhesive is not going to work. I'm going to add just dot runner in the upper corner. And then I'm going to use some adhesive glue dots. And I don't know if you can see, but they're actually really thick. And we'll use that for the opposing corner, or rather the opposite corner. And that's going to help lift that off the page a little bit. And then I'll add a second one in the upper corner. And you can keep adding to each corner until each piece is raised. Again, you don't need to raise the piece that's touching the first frame because the frame itself will go ahead and raise that element for you. Now to the top of this gold glitter frame, I wanted to use some more stickers. So we're going to use this darling little cloud sticker. This is again from the chipboard stickers. And then I love this darling little cloud sticker, and we're going to make that kind of come up behind those clouds here. Now to help draw the eye to these balloons, I'm going to take some enamel dots. These are from Echo Park paper, and I'm just going to add some pink dots up here in the corner just to add some texture and kind of build this layering up a little bit. Here at the bottom, there are some pre-designed tape pieces, but I'm going to take a piece of pink diagonally striped tape, and I'm going to just adhere it off the edge so you can see both pieces. Now when I cut this particular piece of pattern paper, I made sure that that element on the design was left intact. So if you're cutting down a piece of paper, whether it's for a layering piece or for a 8.5 by 11 inch page, if there's something interesting you want to keep in the design, make sure that you cut around that. Then to add some layering here at the bottom, I'm going to add this little chipboard phrase sticker that says, "When you wish upon a star." And it's going to go right across that tape, and it's going to marry all of those elements together. It also helps bring that glitter down from that frame. Now this particular chipboard sticker sheet set had a really fabulous title on it, and it's a curved title. And I'm not going to remove the inner part of this H or the inner part of the Y because I think it's actually kind of an interesting element. And I'm just going to attach those here, and I'm going to allow my title to float a little bit. And you can see that it's not quite sticking to the frame. Here's how we're going to fix that. I have two white buttons to which I've added some black and white baker's twine from Doodlebug Design. We're going to take one of those very sticky dimensional glue dots, and we're going to glue them down onto the frame. We want to try and capture the frame as well as the title, and this will help that title just stick better on the page. It will also look great when photographed because it's going to create a bit of a shadow behind the title, and you can bend it a little bit so it comes down a little bit. Now to add some dimension to this page, and as a final element, I wanted to make this page a little bit special, and throughout the collection there are tassels that appear through the design. So I have created my own tassels from crepe paper, or rather tissue paper, and I'm going to attach a few here, and then I'll show you how you can create your own tassels. So in this particular case, I picked a tissue paper that coordinated with the collection, and I went with the darker teal. And when I tied the tassel together, I made sure that I left enough string that I could tie it to the title. Now this particular title sticker has plenty of room to do this, and then I'm just going to trim off some of those extra pieces, and we're going to add 3 different tassels, and I've prepared them ahead of time so that we can move through this quickly. But if you're looking to create your own embellishments, look for inspiration from the actual collection itself. In this case, the tassels are what spoke to me. So I'm adding tassels. Perhaps you have a star element and you could punch out or die cut some stars, or maybe there are die cut elements that could be cut out, such as the kitty cats on this one, the little kittens. You could come up with something that is kittenish. And I'm going to fluff those out just a little bit. Now before I add the final one, I want to show you how easy this is to do. So what I did is I took a piece of tissue paper, and it is folded in half so that I can use both pieces. And you can either use straight scissors, that just takes a few extra steps, or I have these Martha Stewart Fringe Scissors. And if you can see on the camera, it has a lot of different blades all in one. And then you take that folded tissue paper and you start by cutting lines in the tissue paper. And the key is that you want the height of your tissue paper cuts to be the same height. You don't want to have some that are high and some that are low. And I kept going for about 6 inches. Once I had all of those cut, I took my straight scissors and I left about a 1/2 inch between the top of those fringe cuts and the top of where I'm cutting. Because if you cut right along that fringe edge, the fringe just falls off. Again, I did this for 6 inches. Then to create the tassel, you simply roll up the tissue paper, and you could use as many layers of tissue paper as you want, and you just roll it until you get the shape of a tassel. And then for this final one, you can see that I took some more of that thin crochet twine and I tied it to the top. If you find that your top is a little longer than you want, just snip it off with some straight scissors. And again, I tied it in a knot, but I left enough string so that I could easily thread it onto this title. So if you don't need to thread it on things, then you could leave that step off and just cut that thread off. You could also use coordinating thread instead of white thread. So I could have used teal embroidery floss or something like that. But I liked the look of it looking like it was actually tied to the banner. So I left it in white. And then again, just trim off any excess pieces of that white crochet twine. Adjust and plump your tassels. And you can see that just adds a little bit of dimension and makes this page just a little bit more special. So if you're looking to add a great element to your page, try creating your own tassels. It looks especially good on a collection that already has them as elements, but it is a great element on any party or feminine page. Thank you for joining me for this Just Ask Jen video. Be sure to subscribe to our Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine YouTube channel and visit our website to subscribe to our magazine.